Very nice.
Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to the City of Alameda Mayor's Town Hall. I'm Sarah Henry, the city's Public Information Officer. Joining us today is Alameda's Planning Board President, Alan Teague, and Alameda's Director of Planning, Building, and Transportation, Andrew Thomas. Please note, all participants have been muted. To submit a question for the mayor or for one of our speakers, please use the chat feature. All of our town halls are recorded and are available on the city's website and our YouTube channel. I'd now like to turn today's town hall over to Mayor Marilyn Ezzy Ashcraft.
Thank you, Sarah, and thanks so much for coordinating this. Thank you to our guests for being here, and thank you to all of you. I'm glad that you're here with us because you should not be outside in the air right now. It is an unhealthy air quality day again. And by the way, just so you know, the Alameda Free Library, the main library on Oak Street, is operating a clean air shelter, and it's all socially distanced, and you'll be checked for temperature and must wear a mask when you're inside. But if you are someone who is sensitive, who needs to get into someplace with a good HEPA filter, come on over to the library. You enter through the back because the space we're using is actually the cafe and the Stafford room, the big conference room. So just want you to know that that's what the city's doing. And it'll be operating through the weekend too, correct, Sarah?
Correct.
As long as the air quality,
through Sunday.
Yeah, I mean, I hope the air quality improves, but if it doesn't, the library will be open for that clean air shelter. So I hope that some of you got this exciting postcard in the mail that I got, I got this week about the general plan update for the city of Alameda. It's a really important process, and we just wanted to, as we're launching into some public forums, we wanted to give you all the inside track to learn a little bit more from a couple of experts, ask your questions. And so I want to turn the program over now to our Planning, Building, and Transportation Director, Andrew Thomas, who also staffs the Planning Board. And Andrew is joined by Alan Teague, who is the Planning Board President this term. So Andrew, tell us everything we need to know about the general plan, briefly.
Yeah. All right. I'm just going to
welcome.
Thank you, Mayor Ezzy Ashcraft. Thank you for having us. We're excited to be here and today because it's really, we're kicking off an exciting phase of planning for the city of Alameda, and this next phase, which is really over the next 6 months or so, is going to be coordinated and hosted by the planning board. And as the central the host for this process. And we're kicking this off because we've just opened up our new website and released the next general plan for the city of Alameda. It's in draft form. So what we're doing over the next 6 months and what we're kicking off today is basically encouraging as many people in the community of Alameda to participate in this planning process. So essentially what we have is we have a first draft of a general plan, and it's a plan for you and for your community. It has to be not these things are written by people like me, your staff, your planning staff, but ultimately your planning board that represents all of you decides whether they like it or not and think it's an accurate reflection. And if and when they do of community priorities and policies, then they recommend it to the city council, and ultimately it has to be adopted by your city council. What is a general plan? A general plan is a statement of policies for the city of Alameda for the future. It should reflect the community's priorities and policy directions from everything from regarding about the physical development of the city, the conservation of the city. It's a reflection of your priorities. It is required by state law to have a general plan. And the reason being that the state wants to make sure that all cities are acting in compliance with state law, but also that all your policies and your regulations, your zoning codes, your city budgets, everything should be consistent with an overall statement of policy direction. The courts have called the general plan the Constitution for the city. So everything should be consistent. The Constitution should be consistent with state law. It should also, and everything you do and ordinances you adopt and money you spend as the public should be consistent with that. Why are we updating it now? Like, seems like there's a lot going on right now. These efforts take a long time. We obviously started it well before COVID hit us and some of these, the more recent issues we're dealing with as a community. But the main reason is that these are, as I said, required by state law. We are required to maintain an up-to-date, internally consistent general plan. And our current general plan has not been updated for over 30 years. So the current plan was designed for the period 1990 to 2010. So we're about 10 years late on this.
Oops.
And we're moving along. You know, when you read the current general plan and that introductory chapter, it talks about the Navy that's still at Alameda Point and the railroads that are still running through the Beltline. So it is time to update this document and introduce some of the newer issues and challenges that we're facing in Alameda that weren't even contemplated in the 1990 general plan, like climate change and the environment, equity, inclusiveness, and diversity, all of these kinds of issues, which are very important issues and to this community, and you've already done a lot to move in those directions, but it's not reflected in your general plan, and that's a problem. So where are we at? We've just released the first draft. We are setting up a period over the next 4 months where we're encouraging all of you and your friends and neighbors to participate. And we'll be doing this through till at least January. During this period, we'd love it if people would go to our new website, which I'm going to take you to right now, and I'll show you how to review and participate in this process. I am going to share screen. Whoop. Sarah, am I sharing?
No, not yet.
Hold on a second.
And while Andrew's screen sharing, I will just also remind people, if you haven't completed your census yet, you must do so immediately because the deadline has been moved up to September 30th. So even before you look at the general plan, finish your census.
All right.
There you go, Andrew.
I want to just give everybody a quick orientation to how to find the general plan and how to participate in this process. If you go to our city website and you just scroll down to the bottom, you'll see Alameda General Plan 2040.
So you go to alamedaca.gov, right?
Yep, this is the city website, bottom of the front page of the city website. You can also just go to alameda2040.org, and it'll get you to our homepage for the general plan update. On the homepage, of course, the reason you're here is to see the general plan update, and we have it right there on the front page. There's many ways to navigate through the site, but essentially, you'll come to this page. If you go, you can go and just download the whole plan. It's right there. Or you can look at it chapter by chapter. It's got the 8 chapters, which are all lined up here on this page. I just want to quickly take you to the introduction chapter as an example. If you don't have time to read the whole general plan, you might want to just read this first chapter because it tells you about the overall themes and how the pieces of the general plan and what each chapter is about. A couple key things that if you read nothing else but read just the introduction, people always talk about how much growth are we talking about. That's what this section describes. What are we managing for the next 20 years in terms of housing growth, employment growth? What are we expecting and how do our policies address those issues? This is the projections. But most importantly, at the end of this chapter, and this Alameda General Plan has always done this, what are the major themes that run through this entire plan? Like, what do we really care about in the city of Alameda? Because all the policies in the general plan need to be consistent and internally consistent. And there's 4 themes that are laid out in this draft plan. If you understand these 4 and are in agreement with these 4 themes, then everything in the general plan is going to reinforce these. So that developing a healthy, equitable, and diverse city, protecting the environment, responding to climate change, and meeting regional responsibilities, preservation and enhancement of Alameda's unique historic and neighborhood character, enhancing mobility, accessibility, and life on an island. The reason I wanted to point out those 4 themes is that you will see on our We have also, those 4 themes are the basis for a number of surveys that we have on the website. And what these surveys are is, well, these, you can take a survey, you look at, they're organized around the 4 themes. And when you open a survey, what we've done is we've taken the 9 or 10 or 12 most sort of important policies from each of the chapters that reinforce that theme. And you get to read through those as a sampling and rate them and talk about those policies. And then those 4 themes are also the subject of the 4 forums that the planning board will be hosting over this fall. And the dates for the forums are here, and it's essentially the same. We have 4 themes that run through. So the planning board will be focusing the forums around those policies and those directions. Ultimately, these 4 forums and all of the information, of course, there's ways for you to comment by mail, to contact us, everything you need to be able to participate in this process from the comfort of your couch. That's what we've tried to do here. So I think with that, I've given the overview. Hopefully everybody has a little understanding of what a general plan is. I'd like to hand it off to President Teague of our planning board.
Thanks, Andrew. That was great. Alan Teague, we'd love to hear from you.
Thank you.
Alan, do you want to keep the screen up or no? Here we go. Okay.
No, I'm good.
Yeah.
So Andrew pretty much has laid it out. The general plan is what drives all of the decisions in the city. So it is really important that people provide their feedback. The thing to realize is this is a draft plan. So if there are things in it we want to change, speak up. Things in it that you really like, speak up. Things that are missing, please speak up, because this is what will drive us for the next potentially 20 or 30 years. So it's really important that we get everybody to participate in this process. One of the things that I have done on the planning board is also to make sure that we make deliberate decisions. So I will also be looking at how is it different, where are the differences from our existing general plan, so that we make these changes, we're explicit about it. It's not just accidental. And I think that's really important, because when we end up with what we're doing, I want all of us to feel like, okay, it really does represent where I want this island to go.
Alan, do you, just in case it wasn't clear on the screen, do you want to just go over the dates of each of the workshops and the theme covered?
I would have to refer to the slide, but I will tell you that the first one is dealing with September. So
September 14. Sorry, Alan, I didn't realize.
Yeah.
Okay.
So that one will be really important, and it's very critical today, which is developing this healthy, equitable, and inclusive city. What is it that we need to do to make that happen? We did shuffle things around because I felt that the preservation and enhancement of Alameda's historic neighborhood characteristics needed to happen before the election. So we brought that up to October so that we can have that forum and discussion prior to the election. Then we're going to be talking about the climate action plan and its impact on the general plan in November. And then how do we make it such that mobility, accessibility, and our general well-being on the island, and that'll be in a December timeframe. So each of these pieces are different, but they are interlinked. So it is important for people to come to all of these and provide their points of view, their thoughts, share their ideas.
Thank you. And I think that was a good point on the timing of the topics, Alan. So by the way, when it says there is a little link or the box where you click join, and that you do that to get the Zoom link or whatever to join the meeting? Andrew?
Yes.
Yes, yeah, okay.
We'll be checking all those links before the first meeting.
Yes, always a good idea. But you know, one of the things I say this often, there's always a silver lining to every cloud. And one of the things I'm finding is that these public meetings, they actually are more accessible in a lot of ways now because, as Andrew said, you can just join from the comfort of your couch. Okay, I'm not going to be on my couch when I join, but you can. And so I'm really looking for robust turnout and participation in this one.
I am a little worried because there is a segment of our community that we are not including as a result of requiring internet, computers, and we need to really address how can we include everybody in these discussions.
Aha.
And if I may add,
Please. Yeah.
I wanted just to build on President Teague's point. I think that's another reason why we've started with the first workshop on equity and inclusiveness is it's never too late to keep reaching out. We laid out 4 forums. If we decide we needed to add another forum, another issue, or we did the mailing, we've been doing these other things. If we decide we need to add additional forums, additional ways of getting information, both to residents but also back to us, so that the planning board and the council, they are fully informed by all segments of the community. That's, we're always open to those kinds of ideas and suggestions. The process is intentionally designed to be flexible and adjustable as we go.
And so you might say reach out to those who might be impacted by the digital divide. I think that's what you're talking about, Alan. You might reach out by mail to folks who wouldn't be able to join a forum online like this. Okay. Yeah, and flexibility.
I'm getting the word out. Like if anybody has really good ideas about that, or knows of specific communities or groups that could use additional access, any of those ideas are welcome, and we would appreciate it.
I'm thinking just of our other boards and commissions in the city. Maybe that's an issue that we can bat over to the Social Service Human Relations Board for some input. And Sarah, I know you staff the Commission on Persons with Disabilities. If there's, difficulties for people accessing our meetings online, electronically, maybe your commission can explore that too. Just some thoughts. Yeah. Alan and Andrew, did you want to add anything more to your remarks before we go to questions?
I'd love to hear questions.
All right. Alan, anything more from you first?
I'm good. I'm waiting for the questions that Andrew will answer.
I have to tell you both, when I'm taking notes, even like in a council meeting, I just use people's initials to make a note of who said what. You both have the same initials. This is not helpful.
I did the same thing with Alan Ty. Alan will now present, and it's like,
Okay, this is a minor problem. So Sarah is the keeper of the questions. What do you have?
Sure. Well, I have a few questions, but should we start with, we had a few polling questions that we had put together in advance. So we could see, we have the group on Zoom and then we have a group on Facebook. So we can see really quickly what folks are thinking here on Zoom and then go into the questions that we're getting both from Facebook and from Zoom. How does that sound?
You did polling questions. That's sophisticated.
Some of the similar, well, we'll see how it goes. I'm going to launch it now and we'll see how it goes.
I have high hopes.
Okay. So can you see the first question?
Yeah.
Okay, great. So have you read either the 1990 general plan or the draft 2040 general plan? So go ahead and enter now.
Okay.
I don't think there's very many people who've read the entire plan.
the 1990 one, yes.
Yeah, I was going to say, back when I was on the planning board, and then you hit submit at the bottom.
So go ahead and hit submit, and it'll take you through, I think, 5 questions. So,
okay. So that's for people not like me, because it's not. Oh, it takes you through all. You have to keep going. Okay. Does everyone want to take a minute to do that? Sure.
Try it. Yeah.
We'll just bring everyone together. So
I can't see the actual questions. I don't get a
Oh,
vote, but
you
I can
don't-
see how many people are answering.
Do you know that?
Hey,
Did you,
Sarah, I'm trying to hit submit, and it doesn't seem
Yeah.
to
you
want.
know what, Andrew? You haven't scrolled down to all the questions yet.
Oh, thank
Keep
you.
scrolling.
So
Okay.
after, yeah. And Sarah, so, or for anybody who maybe isn't seeing this, the first one is, have you read either the 1990 general
Yes.
plan or the draft 2040 plan? Number two is, we have, this scrolls fast. We launched a new site at www.alameda2040.org for the general plan update and created 4 surveys. Have you taken a survey yet? And then you keep going and it says, number 3, how do you feel about this statement? Alameda is a safe and healthy community with a high quality of life for everyone, regardless of income, race, cultural background, or physical abilities. And it's a multiple choice. You have choices from strongly agree, somewhat disagree, strongly disagree. Number 4, how satisfied are you with the city's efforts to address climate change and protect the environment? Same choices. And then number 5, I think is the last one, is how satisfied are you with transportation in Alameda? And I would say that might be sort of a qualified question because right now, as I'm sure you all know, our transit systems are operating at reduced hours and capacity because of the COVID pandemic. So then when you finish all those, the submit button will light up in blue. You press it and voila.
And I can, yeah, and I can see that that almost everybody has been taking the questions, and so I think we can give like 20 more seconds, and then I'll end polling, and we'll see what everybody thought.
Okay, and
So
we'll get to,
the clock is ticking. The maybe 10 seconds more.
and I have to, yeah, Sarah, okay, this is a little inside information, people. Sarah texts me. That's the only reason I look halfway competent, it's usually just halfway, is because Sarah texts me, or if it's a council meeting, our city clerk, Laura Weisinger, Mayor, you've muted yourself or something, but you actually said, I know it was just an autocorrect, though, we have some pool questions.
Oh.
So I just assumed that people wanted to ask about outdoor pools, have now gotten the go-ahead from the county public health department, but you probably don't want to be swimming laps today because of the air quality. So pool questions, just a letter difference.
Just one difference. So okay, so I'll go ahead and
ready.
Yeah, no pool questions today.
No pool questions.
I will end the polling, and
All
let's
right.
see. So here I'm going to share the results, and
Right.
yeah, we can see that.
Whoa, hot shots! 18% have read the entire.
Andrew, I told you that a lot of these folks will have read the plan.
Well, one of those people is me.
And maybe
good.
Alan.
You would expect me to have read it, right?
Yeah.
So for folks watching on Facebook, I'm not sure if you can see, but have you read either the 1990 general plan or the draft 2040 general plan? We have 45% have read sections of the plan, and then other folks have read the entire plan, and then some are waiting to hop onto the website, alameda2040.org, to read the plan.
They're going to do it this weekend, I know, or to take the surveys or whatever. Yeah. Yeah.
The second one is we launched a new site at alameda2040.org for the general plan update and created 4 surveys. Have you taken a survey yet? And most have not. So 68% said no, not yet. 23% have taken at least one, and 9% have taken all 4 surveys. So those are our gold star.
Yeah.
Hey, Sarah, before you move on,
Yeah.
we'll be publishing a staff report for the first forum. I think it's the end of next week, and that staff report will have a little summary of what we have heard so far for the first forum, so people can get sort of see a sense of what everyone else is saying on the first survey, and then we'll bring updated results to the forum as well.
Okay, so I read between those lines to say, all of you out there, if you have not yet taken these surveys, do them quickly this weekend so they can find the results, can find their way into Andrew's staff report, right, Andrew?
That's exactly what I'm saying.
Yeah.
Survey number 1. Yep. Okay, so
on the forum.
Yeah. So the third question, how do you feel about this statement? Alameda is a safe and healthy community with a high quality of life for everyone, regardless of income, race, cultural background, or physical abilities. 50% somewhat agreed, 45% somewhat disagreed, and then 5% each strongly disagreed or strongly agreed.
Interesting.
The fourth question, how satisfied are you with the city's efforts to address climate change and protect the environment? The largest vote getter was 50% somewhat satisfied, 32% mostly satisfied, 14% were not at all satisfied, but 5% were very satisfied. And then the last question before we get into our community questions, how satisfied are you with transportation in Alameda? 59% somewhat satisfied, 27% mostly satisfied, 23% not at all satisfied, 0 were very satisfied. So I am going to stop sharing the results. And
It's a tough time for
And
public transit.
so
Andrew, yes.
And that was a great example. So for as we get results, so we've asked everybody to take the surveys. We're going to be looking at those survey responses. Well, we're going to be, at least we'll be sharing those responses with the planning board before their forum on those issues. From staff's perspective, we're going to be saying, hey, on these policies, look at the differences. Like there's a lot of disagreement on these policies. Oh, this other policy, everybody seems to think it's fine. Let's talk about the ones where we have disagreements and different points of view, because that's probably where we as a community need to do the most talking, and the planning board is going to need to be thinking about different perspectives on how to deal with these issues that are reflected in these policies. So we hope these surveys are really help not only provide input on the general plan, but also to help shape the debates that we will have over the next 4 months.
Well said, Andrew. And also, I would just encourage all of you out there, please talk this up. Tell your friends, neighbors, colleagues. You know, the kids have gone back to school now, so if you can message it out to your parent groups or what have you, because the general plan and what goes into it, all these different elements, it impacts all of us in every aspect of our lives in Alameda. So. Make your voice heard. Yeah. Okay, good work, Sarah. Okay, so questions.
so I think President Teague, did you want to make a quick comment?
Oh, I'm sorry, Alan.
No, I'm good.
Oh, okay,
I muted myself because my clock was chiming.
Oh. We might have wanted to hear
Okay.
that.
All right, so the first question that I've had come in is asking if the general plan includes goals or requirements for affordable housing. And then second part, if so, will it be easier to meet those goals or requirements with Article 26 in place or with Article 26 repealed?
I think there was 3 questions there. The first one was, does it have policies? Can you just repeat the question one more time?
Sure, yes, sorry. Does the general plan include goals or requirements for affordable housing?
Yes. It really ties in closely with, the housing policies are primarily in the housing element, which is part of the general plan, but those same themes and where we build housing and how we build housing and what kind of housing we build, those policy directions are woven throughout the land use element, the conservation and climate change element. So it's all laid out there.
Great. And then the second part was, will it be, with those requirements for affordable housing, will it be easier to meet the goals with Article 26 in place or with it repealed?
Well, the state and local goals are to provide a full range of housing types for all income groups. Article 26 specifically limits the type of housing we can build. It says you shall not build any multifamily housing, only low density single family housing. So, it is absolutely restricting the range of housing and the kinds of housing we can build. And it's restricting it to the more expensive housing. So yes, of course, it's going to be easier to meet affordable housing goals without a charter statement that says you can only build the most expensive kinds of housing.
So the next question is similar, but it's asking, what is the state mandating Alameda to do in terms of housing? And then also with the follow-up, what would be the impact of leaving Article 26 alone to meet those state mandates?
And I'm just gonna chime in. I'm channeling my inner city attorney, listening to him hyperventilate. If he was hearing this question, I don't think he is. But whatever Andrew is saying or I say is simply just factual based on the language of particular sections of the charter. We are not advocating one way or the other. This is not a campaign forum because we are using city resources. But Andrew has been living and breathing this charter amendment
I'm
for a
glad
long time.
No, thank you. And thank you for the reminder. This is, ultimately, this is a decision the voters need to make. I tried to answer that last one. Can you repeat?
You were fine. You were fine on the last
Can you
question,
repeat
Andrew.
that question one more time? Oh, the arena numbers and Measure A.
Rena,
The
yeah.
state, exactly, the state mandates.
No, look,
And maybe tell people what RENA numbers are for.
So the state gives each city and county in California a regional housing needs allocation, RHNA, RENA. So we all call it the RENA. Essentially what it does is it says that every city and county needs to provide its fair share of housing for the next 8 years so that the state has enough housing. And it's a number. It's a number of housing units that we need to build. It also breaks that number down to what kinds of housing we need to build. So for lower income versus medium income versus unrestricted. We have been able to meet our RENA and our obligations to provide adequate land for our housing element in the past to be certified by the state. It required adopting ordinances and the general plans policies that were in conflict with the city charter amendment, or city charter, Article 26.
Alan, did you want to add anything?
Sure. So the presence of Article 26 means that we use the multifamily overlay to designate very specific areas in order to meet our RENA. If Article 26 wasn't there, we would do it in a different way. We would do it via zoning restrictions. And so that is the impact of Section 26 being there or not being there on our ability to meet the RENA.
Thanks. Thank you.
The next question asks, how are we incorporating potential impacts of COVID-19 in the general plan? For example, how is working from home more impacting our public transit needs?
Well, I think it's absolutely, we've thought about this and talked a little bit about this and gone back and looked at our safety and noise element to start. That draft is chapter 8 or chapter 7, which is really about how we're protecting health and the environment and public welfare. So the whole pandemic, how do you deal with pandemic? Something we didn't think about or talk about as we were drafting this first draft, but since publishing, we've been thinking about a lot. I'm sorry, Sarah, the second part of that question?
If working from home, I mean, is one effect of COVID-19,
So interesting. I mean, on one hand, we've been talking about, for the city of Alameda, our climate action plan and our general plan for years has talked about, telecommuting and working from home sure would be a huge help to our transportation problem, which is all about commuters. And that, caused by commute trips. It's been a very interesting situation that we are witnessing and experiencing. And how do we plan for transportation in the future? Telecommuting was something we really struggled to have happen up until the last 6 months. We don't know, and this general plan doesn't solve things at that level of detail. This transportation element, absolutely, if this general plan says telecommuting is a good thing. It's a good thing for the environment. It's a good thing for our traffic situation. It's something we should encourage. Therefore, we should allow more a mix of uses within neighborhoods. We should allow businesses and people to be able to work within a mixed use environment. The effect of COVID-19 on our transportation, our hope is that more people remain telecommuting in the long run, even after COVID. And we hope that everyone who does not telecommute, or on the days when they're not telecommuting, they are back on public transportation. Because if they all go back to go continue driving, we'll still have our greenhouse gas issues and our traffic issues to contend with.
Alan, what do you think? You're probably doing a fair share of telecommuting now, I imagine.
Completely.
Completely, yeah.
I will be working from home through at least the end of July. As will
next July?
Yes.
Wow.
That is the direction that the company has provided.
Huh.
So it will bring to the forefront the concern that I have raised about our climate action plan and our electricity usage. And that basically as we add air conditioners and filters and are working at home during the day, our energy load is going to change from what it has been historically. And making sure that that is factored into AMP's climate plan for being clean energy. So that.
Alan, I needed you on my town hall last week when we had we had the president of the Public Utilities Board and a couple of AMP staff. But that is a very good observation. We'll share that.
You know, what's going to happen and how we're going to need to change because of COVID-19, we don't know yet. It's going to be a long time before we know. How is it going to affect public transportation in the long run? We don't know. It could be we have a big surplus of ferry terminals. I don't know. I hope not. I hope people use it and we can go back to an approximation of where we were.
Yeah, I mean, I think just on the electricity front, I mean, the good news is that we have a clean, green supply of electricity in Alameda. The bad news is we share that grid and we have transmission lines that we share with PG&E. So we run into some problems lately. But one of the things that Ann McCormick, the president of the Public Utilities Board, said last week is that we need better and more robust storage. I mean, we're producing a lot, we've got a lot of great sources, and so if we could store it, including options for residents to store solar energy that you may generate at your home. So yeah, but all good. You just see how we're all so interrelated, and yet we need to rely more on electrification of our buildings because it's gas that is, gas powered appliances and things that are contributing to our pollution. Okay, next question, Sarah.
Yeah, I think this is for Andrew. Is it true that not repealing Article 26 would actually cause high rises because we have to squeeze state required housing quotas into smaller allotted areas?
I'm sorry.
Say that again, Sarah.
That question all of a sudden did a twist at the end.
Yeah.
Is it true? So is it true, true or false question, that not repealing Article 26 would cause high rises because we have to squeeze state required housing quotas into the smaller allotted areas?
No, that doesn't, no. Our height limits are set in our general plan and zoning code. And if Measure A is repealed in November, none of those things change. What it does do is it allows the council to have, and the planning board to have public hearings and community discussions and ultimately make decisions about does the community want to change height limits anywhere in the city? And there's no height limits in Measure A. Measure A is about density of housing, so and the types of housing. So,
but Andrew, did you understand the question? I think it's saying,
no, I think I'm completely.
If it's not, it was a little bit, a little complex. If it's not repealed, will we have to build high rises in order to meet our RHNA numbers? But
it's not going to. You're going to have to meet your RHNA numbers either way, and whether you do it through like Alan was saying, whether you do it through an MF process like we did in 2012.
The multifamily overlay zoning district,
or you do it with a different approach, just a more typical zoning approach. There's not a direct You don't, by not repealing it doesn't make high rises.
Okay.
If
One doesn't follow the other.
Yes, exactly.
Okay, Sarah.
Andrew, I think it would be great if you could share your screen again. The next person is asking, they want to know the dates of the meetings and they want to know where to go on the website to find the times and the Zoom links. So we'll go
Okay.
there.
This is the page you want to get to, which has the dates. It's on, if you at the top, if you go to the top of the website, engage, that's the appropriate link to get to the forums.
Great. And then
alameda2040.org.
and then while
Thanks,
you're
Ellen.
there, Andrew, they also ask what is the best way to give detailed comments?
The best way would be to contact, I believe we have right here. I mean, we have provided a place for you to provide information to us directly here. Frankly, the other thing that would be fantastic is if you really want to give detailed comments, email. If you like working in Microsoft Word, just email an attachment to us. Whatever works easiest for everyone, we'll take it. We don't have a limit, and we're going to make everybody's comments available to the planning board and the council and the public. So we really encourage people to, you know, the more time and effort that people put into it, I think the more successful this process will be.
Great. Thank you for doing that. You can unshare.
Okay.
And the next question is, are there any plans concerning future technologies such as drones flying over our city or autonomous cars or bikes using our roads and bike lanes?
There are no plans for that. In the general plan or policy directions on that, other than, you know, and from the city's perspective, you know, we're still trying to figure that out. And the technology isn't quite there yet.
So it was drones and autonomous vehicles?
Autonomous cars or bikes. Mm-hmm.
Cars or bikes. Wow.
I mean, we definitely see that in our future, but it's not addressed in the general plan.
In the general plan. What about a plan to build another bridge or tunnel to get off the island on the west end?
Yes, we are working on a bicycle pedestrian bridge on the west end, absolutely, to provide better access to downtown Oakland from the west end. We are not working on any bridges or tunnels for cars. The city doesn't have the money for it. The federal government and state government doesn't fund those kinds of projects. And there's no way we could get the permits and the approvals to land one in Oakland. So it's any bridge or tunnel would have to be approved by both cities, and Oakland's not interested.
And you're talking about for automobiles.
For automobiles.
Yeah, because it's
for automobiles.
Different story on the bicycle.
Yeah, no, bicycle and pedestrians, City of Oakland has been very supportive. They've put it in their downtown specific plan. That's something they want to see happen.
Yeah. Alan, any thoughts or comments you wanted to add?
No, I would run afoul of various things.
Okay, you can stay on the safe side of the street there.
Yeah.
Okay.
Andrew, does the general plan address emergency evacuations?
Yes, there's the policies regarding evacuation are in the safety element of the general plan.
Great. And then another question, have we made any progress finding more permanent or transitional housing for our communities most vulnerable and the unhoused?
I'll talk a little bit about that. We are, well, it is the county's initiative, but there was money available for jurisdictions to purchase some hotels and motels that have become available, because as I'm sure many of you know, the hospitality industry has taken a big hit with COVID, and people are not traveling much either for recreation or business these days, but it's, you know, another opportunity. And so I do believe that the Marina Village Inn at Marina Village, if you know where that is, out near the Encinal Yacht Club, and I think the Oakland Yacht Club is also out that way, is in use right now with a state program called Project Room Key, which has, well, for right now, in Alameda, it has dual purposes. Some individuals are formerly unsheltered who would be more susceptible to getting very sick if they were to get COVID because they were older or have health conditions. And also we have a population there from our Midway shelter for women and children who are victims of domestic violence, because Midway, well, sadly, during this COVID pandemic, we have seen an increase in domestic violence. And so women and children have had to flee their homes, and yet Midway still needs to maintain social distancing to make sure that its residents are safe. So some of them have space at the Marina Village Inn, and the county, and I haven't followed up lately, but I know they were making a bid to actually buy that so that when we get past COVID, those could actually be transitional housing units, and they would be housing that has, on-site residential manager and services available to the residents, with the goal of getting them into permanent housing situations. And then in Alameda, I know one of the things that will come before the council sometime this fall is we want to, we were lucky to get from the city of Oakland 4 beautiful FEMA trailers that they didn't need because they were going kind of in a different direction with their unsheltered. And so we do have some folks who are, again, in that first category I talked to you about, formerly unsheltered, but in vulnerable health categories if they were to get COVID. And so they have been living out in those 4 trailers now. I think we have at least 2 in each trailer. And when we get past COVID, and we will, those 4 trailers are going to be available for some form of transitional housing for folks. And then we're also hoping to do a safe parking situation where people can come, rather than live in their cars, they can have a place to safely, well, park their cars. I've got a few ideas that I'm looking into more, so I don't want to say too much. But, school has just started, and I don't know how many are aware that there's a significant number of students in AUSD who go to bed at night in a car or a van, and that should not be. So we're working toward that. And the council will be looking more at this in the fall and the coming year.
Thank you,
else
Mayor.
in that?
A couple more questions. The next one is, how might the election change the draft general plan, especially considering the changed meeting subject?
What's the changed meeting subject?
I think that's what Alan was talking about. The meeting shifts. I'm not sure. That was.
And my laptop just sort of.
Okay.
While you were speaking.
I told you there's never a Zoom meeting without some technical glitch. So welcome.
I guess the question number 1 is just, how might the election change the draft general plan?
You're talking about the election of, it's a draft general plan. We're not going to adopt it until 2021 at the soonest. So, the general plan is going to change over the next 6 months, 8 months, as the community comments on it in the planning board. And ultimately, it will be the next council that adopts it. It won't be the council that's, so whoever's on the council in 2021 will ultimately be deciding whether the plan gets adopted as is or changed in some way.
And that, of course, is after a full and robust planning board process, correct?
Absolutely. No, the planning board, so planning board's having forums this fall. Then after they feel they've had enough forums, they will start scheduling public hearings before the planning board. And then those hearings will conclude with a planning board making an official planning board recommendation to the city council. They only do that when they feel ready to do it. And then the city council has to hold public hearings as well before they can make a final decision to adopt the general plan.
Alan, any thoughts from you as planning board president?
I don't think it will affect the general plan one way or another, because what we're doing in the general plan is stating general guidelines. We're not saying we want to build multifamily housing here. That's already in the plan itself. So it will have very little effect because the vast majority of the plan is not directly related to that.
And I will say that I'm in the process right now of making nominations to our various boards and commissions that will be completed, I'm sure, before the election. I mean, every 2 years there's a rotation of seats, but not all at once because they're staggered. And I have to say, I agree with Andrew, emailed me something when he sent me the applications to review, that never in his 18 years has he seen such an impressive bunch of applicants. And I'm seeing that across the board from community members who are applying for boards and commissions. So, you know, whoever is chosen, I'm just really gratified that we have so many interest and interest from a wide variety, you know, across the island, folks who've lived here for a while and folks who haven't lived here very long, but a lot of talent, present company included with our planning board president. But I'm just always gratified and humbled at the response to these board and commission vacancies that come up. Yeah, so what else?
All right, so next question, Andrew. Can Alameda meet its lower income housing obligations solely by building new low income housing at Alameda Point?
Well, it's an eight, we get a new allocation every 8 years. So I mean, part of this planning effort is, so let's at least try to look out 20 years, not just every 8 years with our housing element. You know, I mean, in theory, sure, you could just build all low income housing at Alameda Point to meet your RENA numbers for the 8 years, but then you're going to get another 8-year allocation after that, and another one after that. So, you know, the city's policies to date and are also reflected in this general plan is that we should be an integrated community across the island, that neighborhoods should have a mix of types of people and incomes and businesses. And you know, the idea of, no, we're just going to do all the low income at one end of the island, that is not supported by the policies in this general plan or in any prior general plan.
Alan, do you want to comment?
One of the reasons I moved to Alameda is because our diversity is spread out across the island. We don't have pockets like San Francisco does, or at least not extreme pockets like San Francisco does. And any idea of saying we're going to put all of our low income housing into one specific item would be, you know, it would be the opposite of what we want to do as an island. Could it be done? Absolutely. You could definitely build a giant section of block houses that over there, and it would be something that I would not be able to support on the planning board.
So there's a difference perhaps between could and should.
Yes, exactly.
And I concur with both of you in that I think when we talk about what it means to be an equitable community, it means across the board, and I think we're all better for it if we mix our housing types and categories. Sarah, we've got a couple of minutes.
Just a couple more questions in the last couple of minutes.
3 minutes worth, yeah.
Yes. The next person is unclear if affordable housing is in the plan, and they said that there was a comment made about multifamily, but will there be a % of new properties allocated?
A percent for low income.
For affordable housing, yes.
There are strong policies in the housing element to support the provision of low income housing and affordable housing throughout the city.
But percentage wise, I mean, the RENA numbers will give us a percentage, correct?
We have a percentage that we require as part of our inclusionary housing ordinance. That's so 15% of every project has to be deed restricted over 10 units. Our 8-year RENA that's allocated to us breaks down the total number of housing units that we need to be trying to provide and construct over the 8-year period, and it breaks it down by income group. So you know, the housing has to be, to a certain percentage of it has to be classified as very low, low, moderate, to ultimately meet your obligation at the end of the eight years, you need to show how you've met not just the total number, but the numbers within each
By
subcategory.
category, yeah. Yeah.
The next person is saying that they're finding it difficult to understand how zoning ordinances may still restrict the building of multifamily housing in some neighborhoods, and they want to know if there's a city resource who can help answer these questions. Is that you, Andrew?
Yeah, you can always
Of course
call
it is.
me, 747-6881.
This is where the buck stops.
Yeah, look, every city in California regulates their height limits and those kinds of things in their zoning code and in their general plan. That's where it's done in California. I mean, I'm assuming the references to this in this question is the Measure A question. Like, if you take it out of the charter, then what happens? It's already in our general plan and our zoning. What is unusual about Alameda is that you have Article 26, which is essentially a form of zoning and putting it in your city charter.
And Andrew, on the second workshop, which is on October 12th, and the topic is preservation and enhancement of Alameda's unique historic neighborhood character. Is that at that forum? Are these the kinds of questions that will be examined?
I mean, we have the general plan includes a whole host of policies, really designed to trying to make sure that as we manage growth and change and all the issues we're going to have to deal with over the next 20 years, that we don't lose those special characteristics that makes Alameda so special. I mean, you all live here, you all know what I'm talking about. I've worked here. I mean, it's so obvious in Alameda that when you walk around and travel through the city, it's an amazing city. And a lot of it has to do with its sort of physical form, the mix of people, the types of open spaces, the neighborhoods, it's that whole package of characteristics that makes Alameda so special and unique. So we're trying to highlight some of those policies. Historic preservation is included as part of that. Trees, it's all part of that kind of conversation.
And I was just going to throw in last night. So I'm part of the League of California Cities, and we have the East Bay division of the league, which are cities in Alameda and Contra Costa County. And we had a fascinating speaker last night from the Haas Institute of Othering and Belonging at UC Berkeley. And you may have heard of the book, The Color of Law. And our speaker last night is a colleague of the author of that, which is a book I'm just starting to read. But this particular speaker, Stephen Menendian, talked about how institutional racism is related to housing, and specifically, I mean, he's looked at it nationwide, but he drilled down in the Bay Area. And Andrew, I don't know if this would surprise you or not, but his finding was that 82%, as a percentage of all residential zoning in the Bay Area, 82% is zoned for single-family residential.
Mm-hmm.
And there's a breakdown by city, and of course we were looking across 2 counties, but actually we were looking across more than just 2 counties, because when you talk about the Bay Area, it's usually the 9 ABAG counties. But
no, and that's particularly the East Bay,
yeah.
Andrew,
Okay.
along those lines, somebody actually asked, 2 sections refer specifically to historic housing, and so they wanted to know what does that mean? I think it's what you're talking about here.
Good question.
Historic housing in terms of the preservation and architecturally historic. Well, I think what we were referring to is, and as part of the preservation of Alameda's historic character, is the policies that address historic preservation of buildings, policies that protect the character of neighborhoods. We do have a whole, city landmark process and historic advisory board that implements those policies. But those are all an important part of what makes Alameda work and be the way it is. We think that's a big part of the kind of unique character of Alameda. And so the general plan supports those programs and continues that policy direction, which has been in the prior general plans as well.
Okay, two last questions. So
Quickly.
second to
Yeah.
last, the active transportation plan is expected to be finalized before the general plan update. How do we make sure those plans align? And would the general plan override the active transportation plan if there were conflicts?
No, we're going to make sure we're going to make sure Alameda City staff is not that big. There's only about 4 or 5 of us writing
And
the plan.
you're talking to the planning, building, and transportation director.
Yeah,
so
right.
on the one hand, on the other.
Andrew is doing the general plan. Rochelle is doing the active transportation plan. We talk every day. And you know, what will be interesting and
But it's a good question. It's a very good question.
Yeah, coordinating is not hard in this situation because, you know, we are going through the Transportation Commission, the Planning Board, and to the City Council with both those plans. So whichever goes first is going to start the conversation. The plan that follows, we don't have to have the conversation again. We're going to just make sure that everything meshes up. And realistically, both plans will be moving through that process. If both plans sort of stay on their current schedules, you know, in the spring of next year.
Great.
So, you know, they'll be all coming together, which makes coordinating them and making sure they're all internally consistent just that much easier.
Thanks.
Great. So last question is about the public comment. And I'm going to ask 2 questions at the same time because this is the last question. But does the city make available the attendance at these different meetings to gauge involvement? And are there minimum standards of input to judge the collection of feedback? And then a different question is, what is the level of influence that public comment will have on the general plan?
Well, I'll just take the one about, does the city, what was it, make attendance? Tell me that question.
Well, I guess we have the demographics from some of the surveys and things like that, but is there a minimum standard to ensure that the feedback that was collected throughout the process was inclusive?
We are on the surveys, we're asking people to fill a simple information about like which portion of the city do you live in, east, west, you know, southwest, just so we can make sure that we're getting, just so we can all know, you know, are we getting input across the entire island or just certain areas? The basic plan here will be to share all information, all comments. Everyone can make their own decisions about whether it's a good comment or a bad comment. I mean, we're talking about policies here. We're talking about priorities. Everybody's viewpoint is valid. I think what's interesting about this process is, can we as a community draft policies that reflect the general consensus? There will always be people who disagree.
A quick question I just wanted to insert is, Sarah, is there a translation function button on the website?
That's a great question, Mayor. And I believe that there is, that we did a Google Translate. I'm going to go to the website now.
So I was just looking at a friend's website. She happens to be running for mayor in another city. And I thought it was really cool that at the bottom of her, the homepage, there was a translate button and a number of different options. And I think we've done that because when you talk about, you know, reaching out and wanting to get a wide variety of input, you know, some people would be more able to take the survey in another language. Oh.
Right. So we do not have that on the website. We can certainly add the Google Translate tool. That's an easy thing to do. And apologies for missing that. And then, but the surveys, it might be a little bit more complicated, but we can figure out the best way to address that.
Mm-hmm.
Cool. And Andrew, I think you were still answering the question.
Yeah, I'll just real quickly, just so people understand kind of how this works. I mean, city staff through the website and emails and letters, and we take all the comments. We then go through them ourselves, because what we're interested in first is, hey, are there any good ideas here? Are there any really strong points that are telling us that we think there should be some changes to this plan? Like, oh, we hadn't thought about it that way, or that's a great point, we need to fix that. We then take all that same information and our findings about it and our thoughts about it, and we give that to the planning board. And this is kind of how everything works in terms of the planning process in Alameda. So we're telling the planning board, hey, here's all the public information we received. here's what we think about it, here's what we think you might want to think about doing in terms of changes to the plans, this is what we recommend. And then the planning board has its own public hearings to evaluate the information from the public, the information from staff, anything else they thought or hear, and their own thoughts and perspectives. That all then becomes part of the public record, and then the council gets the benefit of not just the staff and the public input, but also the planning board's input and recommendations. So, you know, there's no standard for like, oh, this doesn't meet our standard, we don't look at it. No, everything gets considered.
And what
I guess
I would just throw in actually a plea to my, or an ask of everyone who's listening or watching. I recognize some of your names and I know you're active on social media. So please help us amplify this message. Put that website out there and urge people to go online and take that survey. While you're at it, mention that if they haven't taken the census, to please do it by the end of September, and to wear a mask every time they leave the house. Simple ask, but you can help carry this message even further, because you all have your circles and your followers, and this would be great.
Andrew, just to follow up on the last question, which is really the last question. So, but
yeah, the last question.
The level of influence that those public comments will have. I know that you've talked about how they will kind of inform the conversation, but what is people are asking, what is the level of influence that public comment will receive?
Well, I mean, it's going to be considered by city staff. It's going to be considered by the planning board members before they make a decision, and then it's going to be considered by the city council before they make a decision. So it's the maximum amount of consideration that you can give a public comment through a public process that ultimately has to end with a decision, which in this case would be the council deciding whether they like the policies in this plan and want to adopt them as recommended by the planning board. And I'm sure this general plan will look different from where it looks today as to the one that we bring to the council at the end of the process. There will be changes, I guarantee it. There's no way that it goes through this process and doesn't get adjusted based on community feedback.
Thank you. All right. Thank you all. Thank you so much, Andrew and Alan. It was fascinating to hear this discussion, and I appreciate your answering the questions so thoroughly and thoughtfully. Sarah, as always, thank you for making this all happen. Thanks to all of you who watched and listened. And like I said, please help amplify this message. This is the general plan update will be that much stronger and more representative the more voices are woven into it. So let us hear from you. I know we've got really smart and engaged and experienced citizens. So share that experience and your viewpoint with the city. All right, everybody. Well, take care. Keep an eye on the air quality. Maybe take it easy a little bit this weekend. But when you do leave your house, wear that mask. I put mine out of view, but I always have it. Yes, thank you. Sarah's my model. So anyway, take care, stay safe, and we'll see you next week. Thank you again, Andrew and Alan. That was great.
Thank you.
All right.
Bye.
Bye, everybody.
Bye, everyone.
Take
Bye,
care.
everyone.
Stay safe.